What happened to the smartest girl at your school? I was in calculus when Charlotte Adams walked in 20 minutes late looking like hell. She sat down in her usual front row seat and just stared at the floor while Mr. Taylor handed back our tests. When he got to her desk, he paused before placing the test face down. Charlotte had a perfect 4.0 since 7th grade and was going to Stanford in the fall. She was the kind of student teachers used as an example. My mom taught English at our school and wouldn't shut up about how Charlotte was going to be someone important someday. "Charlotte, can we talk after class?" Mr. Taylor said quietly. She didn't respond, didn't even look at him. After class, I watched her walk past Mr. Taylor without a word. He called after her, but she just kept walking down the hallway like she couldn't hear him. The next day in English, Charlotte didn't turn in the essay that was worth 30% of our grade. My mom stood at her desk looking confused. "Charlotte, where's your paper?" she asked. "Didn't do it," Charlotte said. The whole class went silent. My mom looked like Charlotte had just spoken in a foreign language. "This is worth 30% of your grade." "I know." My mom just stared at her, then moved on to collect everyone else's papers. After class, I heard my mom through the door saying something about the guidance counselor. Charlotte's voice came back cold and firm, saying she didn't need to talk to anyone. By the end of the week, Charlotte had failed 2 major tests and stopped showing up to half her classes. When she was there, she sat in the back staring at nothing. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days, with dark circles under her eyes and shaking hands. The rumors started immediately. Drugs, mental breakdown. Pressure finally got to her. Her best friend Maya told people Charlotte had blocked her on everything and wouldn't return calls. The following Monday, Charlotte's name was missing from the valedictorian announcement. Her scholarship to Stanford required her to maintain her GPA, and everyone knew she was going to lose it. Teachers kept trying to pull her aside. She ignored all of them. I saw her in the library that Wednesday, sitting alone at a table in the back, not studying, just staring at her hands. I walked over before I could stop myself. "Charlotte, what's going on?" I asked. "You're throwing away everything you worked for." She looked up at me, and for a second I saw something desperate and terrified in her eyes before it disappeared. "You should leave me alone," she said. "Why are you doing this?" I said. "Because I have to." "That doesn't make any sense," I said. She stood up suddenly, grabbing her bag. "You don't know anything about my life. Stop asking questions." But I couldn't stop thinking about the way she'd said, "I have to," like she didn't have a choice. The fear that had flashed across her face. Something was really wrong, and nobody was figuring it out. Thursday afternoon, I was leaving school late when I saw Charlotte walking fast toward the parking lot. There was a man waiting by a car, and he looked angry. When Charlotte got close, he grabbed her arm hard enough that she flinched. I heard him say something sharp and threatening that I couldn't make out. Charlotte's whole body went rigid, and she nodded, and he shoved an envelope at her before getting in the car and driving away. Charlotte stood there for a long moment holding the envelope. Her hands were shaking. When she finally moved, she walked to her car like every step hurt, and I saw her wipe her eyes before getting in. Friday morning, Charlotte wasn't at school. By lunch, the rumor was she'd been called to the principal's office with her mom. Because her GPA had dropped so much, she was at risk of not graduating. Someone said they heard yelling. I saw her mom in the parking lot afterward, crying in her car. Charlotte walked past her without stopping and got into her own car. Her hands were shaking so badly she dropped her keys twice. That weekend, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The man in the parking lot and the envelope and the way Charlotte had looked terrified. On Sunday night, I drove to her house even though I barely knew her, even though she'd told me to leave her alone. I knocked on the door, and her little brother answered. He was maybe 12 years old and looked scared. "Is Charlotte here?" I asked. "She's not allowed to have visitors," he said quietly, glancing behind him nervously. "Who says she's not allowed?" "Our dad. He's really strict now. Ever since..." He stopped himself. "Ever since what?" The kid looked at me with these huge, frightened eyes. "I'm not supposed to talk about it." Monday morning, Charlotte showed up to school with a black eye that she'd tried to cover with makeup. She walked straight past everyone with her head down. When my mom asked about the bruise, Charlotte said she fell. When the school nurse tried to talk to her, Charlotte said it was none of her business. At lunch, I found her sitting alone outside behind the gym. I sat down next to her without asking. "I know something's happening to you," I said, "and I know you're not failing because you stopped caring." She was quiet for so long I thought she wasn't going to answer. Then she turned to look at me, and her eyes were full of tears. "If I tell you," she whispered, her whole body trembling, "you have to promise you won't try to help me, because if anyone tries to help me, it's only going to make everything so much worse." She grabbed my arm hard enough that it hurt, and I saw absolute terror in her eyes. "Promise me right now that you won't tell anyone what I'm about to say." Full story on the channel below.